Stephen Magwenzi. Welcome
Yes,
to
sir.
Men Don't Talk United. It's a pleasure to have someone like yourself on this, and hopefully we can share you can share some of your thoughts and wisdoms on the things that we're about to talk about, and see where we get to. So,
Thank you.
if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself.
Yes, my name is Stephen Magwenzi, and I grew up in Zimbabwe, Harare, Zimbabwe, raised by my father and mother. My parents were separated, and so I lived, I guess, with, in a what do they call this? My father came with me and other children and married another woman. What is it? What's the exact wording for it? It's a I don't know, blended families. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? So he came from a blended family, and and then from there, I predominantly raised by my sets of grandparents. Both maternal and paternal, and from there, I, I think that I think that in my relationship with, growing up, I had uncles that I guess I could look up to. I was the oldest boy, so I never had a brother that I could sort of like say, look, man, give me some pointers, give me some direction, because my uncle was a few years ahead of me. And so we were never at school at the same time. So there was nobody ever that I could look up to. So I was the one that people looked up to. And I really don't know whether I was that example that you could follow, in the sense that even the age bracket between me and my brothers was still large anyway. So by the time when they went to high school, I had long gone. I was long gone from there.
Yeah.
So that's my existence. And then I left Zimbabwe to go and study. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go study overseas. And from there, now I live here in Western Australia with my wife, Unami, and 4 kids. Mandla, who is 15, Noktula is 13, Butsepo is 10, turning 11 next week, Tuesday. And we've got a baby, Guguletu, she's 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got a strong unit.
Yeah, we got a unit, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's we're now at that stage where you go through the different challenges of parenthood. They were nice when they were young, and so now they're coming up into their own. They question a lot, they stick out their necks, so that's a challenge in itself, but it's all right.
Yeah.
It can be frustrating, but other than that, it's cool.
Awesome. And
So thank you very much thank you for taking giving me the opportunity to come on to Men Don't Talk United and to just share my perspective, and just my thoughts and my experiences, and I hope that your viewers and your listeners will get some encouragement from it.
Absolutely. And this is kind of why I wanted to get you on, and we'll touch on all that in a little bit. But I also wanted to focus on your work as a motivational coach, because I think that's equally as important. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I think this is so I run a firm called Firma Coaching and Consulting, and so I do I do executive and leadership coaching and training, but also part of that with some of the individual clients that I work with. They all come with different they're all at different spaces in their lives, or different seasons of their life, and through that I have the opportunity, as well as to provide some encouragement and motivation, and I think that we called the firm is called Firmo, so it's Firm O, and Firmo is really it's a Latin derivative of the word encourage, or to establish, and I think that along our journey in life, that there are things that are already on the inside of us that we're just not aware of. And it takes other people with greater awareness than we have to make us, to encourage us, to give us the strength, but also to establish those things that we were not aware, that we have those things deep on the inside of us.
Mm.
And so that's, when we work with people, it's about what are their needs. So we don't dictate as to what is it that, we don't, it's not, they set the agenda,
Right.
and then we work with them. And then if there's an opportunity through that to provide, some motivation, we definitely do that.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's really interesting. And I guess it kind of delves into some of the things that I wanted to ask you about. And, me and you obviously are kind of from a similar background in terms of like Zimbabwean, growing up in Zimbabwe. And we were raised in a certain way. And, it's interesting because what I'd like you to comment on, or, at least tell me a little bit about what you think in a minute is, recently we shared on our page, Men Don't Talk United, about the issue of, men being tough or supposedly having to appear tough, or whether I should rephrase that and say men should always be, tough. So we're always looked at, and I know this is particularly akin to certain cultures, like cultures I've just mentioned, like ours, but not just ours, many other cultures. So this idea of being, tough, or you're a man, so you're a man, so you should be tough, like take it on the chin, sort of thing. So, and masculinity is going to be a topic that I'm going to want to cover at another date.
Sure.
And maybe we might delve into it a little bit now. I just wondered kind of what were if there was a theme that you saw with regards to sort of, challenges that you see within your coaching, if that's
Look,
ever relevant.
maybe one thing I can say, and this is just a general statement, pertaining to that, but as a generality to life as well, is that, the male figure in our lives cannot be, the importance of that male figure cannot be underscored, and sometimes we, as men, we grow up thinking, well, I don't give a damn, I don't care what my daddy didn't do that, and I ain't gonna, when I get my kids, I'm not going to do the same thing that he did to me, whether your dad was present in your life. We've got a lot of people who had their fathers present, but they were really absent, in that they were not really involved in their kids' lives, and so I think that there is always, from my experience, in not necessarily with the coaching, but in life generally, is that there's a wound, sometimes that we can carry. There's a wound that we can carry, and that wound is not having that affirmation that we believe that we are due as men. And I think that, culturally, when you look at the way things were done before, where they'll take people through the rites of passage, or like the rite of passage, and they go through all those initiations, that was kind of that, being affirmed. Now that you're a boy, now that you go through this ceremony, you become a man. And so there's an affirmation that comes with that gives you confidence. Then you're called a warrior. All of a sudden, you're beating your chest, you hold your chest up high. And so I think that there's a general wound that people carry through their lives, where that affirmation is not present in their lives, and it takes perhaps, it takes a village really to raise kids, and especially boys. But also this thing about being tough, in my own experience, if I can just elaborate on that, is that was not growing up in Zimbabwe in the 80s and the 90s, and that I went to an all boys school, and that is a baptism of fire. You are not allowed. I mean, in fact, the best word to use is that it is like it's like a tank. It's like a fish. It's a tank, but it's all sharks. There are no fish in those tanks. And if you try and come across to be a fish, the sharks will gobble you up. And so from that age, that's when we learn to suppress our feelings, Now, some of us I don't think I was necessarily as bold and strong when I was a young guy. I was obviously smaller in stature. I was small, and so maybe I was into my feelings, but that didn't make me a weak person. It just made me different. I wasn't the chest beating kind of guy. I was maybe a bit quiet, reserved. So that narrative, of men being tough can really go against who you are as a person, as an individual. And I think there's toughness, and strength is, some of the guys who appear physically strong are, are weak in certain aspects. They're morally weak.
Yeah.
Their character is questionable. And so I think that there needs to be a redefining of what the masculinity is. And I think that for me, it has to be about your character. Are you a man of your word? Are you a man of good character? Because I think that trumps, the six pack. Whilst that is nice and that's great, and I think everybody should aspire to that, but still, that's not what male masculinity is. That's not what male strength is.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because you've touched on a lot of like key important bits. Because I guess for me, it's when I look at where we are now. Obviously, we're in the UK. You're in Western Australia, and the issues around mental health. The dialogue that tends to, or that has sort of increased recently, just because obviously with the pandemic and everything, is a little bit about the male masculinity, sort of trying to tie that in, is that mental health has become quite an important thing. So I don't have the stats with me at the moment, but I did do a separate episode where I spoke to a buddy of mine called Claude, and we talked about male suicides, or let's just say suicides in general, and how male suicides are higher. I'll correct this in the video if I'm slightly off my stats there, just to clarify. And for me, we see this thing now where, if I look at it from my perspective, if I look at, let's break it down. If I look at it from a work perspective and a family perspective, I'd like to think, and I would think my wife would agree with me, that I am a father that is heavily involved in the aspects of home life. So we don't have the sort of old traditional duties as they would have been prescribed in those days. Like, a dad disappears, and then when he rocks up later, whether he's been at work or whether he's gone to the shebeen or the bar, afterwards. It's a totally different conversation. Living in the UK, I mean, we could argue that because we live in a Western world, we don't live by those predefined traditional views or norms. But, I'm a guy who's heavily involved in the family life and in work life. Equally, there's a lot of other stresses if we talk about what the internet does or does to us, and how it vies for a lot of our attention in terms of how we use a lot of devices now, and how there's an increased, reliance on those things. But mental health has become a big thing. And I see it as, when I also talk about how I came about with this platform for Men Don't Talk United, the thing that I used to hear my wife say a lot to me, and this is something that's been on different podcasts I've done, is that men don't talk. So, I've been married 10 years, and it's like something that I heard her say continuously. Men don't talk, men don't talk. And I was just like, what is this woman on about? And after a few years and different conversations with friends, it started to make sense. Because even now, if I have arguments with my wife, I'm still working on it. If we look at the good cop, bad cop, she's the good cop, I'm the bad cop. If I get upset, I'm not gonna speak to her until I'm ready, where she's ready to deal with it. So I don't want to go too much off topic, because I feel I might be slaying a little bit, but but mental health has become a big thing for all kinds of reasons, and all the things that I've said could be some of the things that add to it, sort of the increased role of men within families, within society. And I don't know whether it's that's too much pressure, or people suffer mental health for so many different things. And I guess that's why I was kind of trying to understand from you whether you had seen sort of any particular themes from your side of the world?
Yeah, look, I think that the thing that men don't talk is that, we do talk, you know. However, it we are not necessarily quite easy to divulge what's really going down at a surface level, you know. And it takes, with your partner, wife, whatever, it may be, it takes that understanding one another for you to begin to open up, and so in the moment, it's quite normal that you might say, look, I'm not ready to have a chat yet. Give me some time to process things. And then when I'm ready, boom, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you have the conversation about things in the moment, you're just ready to unleash the bazooka, and just let it all and just let her have it. You know what I mean? Which is not wise. So sometimes the best thing to do is just to say, look, let me just shut it down for a few, up until I'm ready to talk. And then you can have the constructive, when everybody is not tired, everybody is fresh, have that conversation. And the language that is used is that, when you did this, this is how you made me feel. So we own our own feelings.
Yeah.
Now, having said, in terms of mental health, I think that the biggest thing is this thing where we just sometimes we find it very difficult to be vulnerable. I mean, I know earlier this year I did this, some guy tagged me on this 25 push-ups per day challenge, and so I did shout out a few people to say, let's get into the push-ups. And every day I'd be posting a little video of me doing the push-ups, and then just a little message of encouragement, because it's quite real, that sometimes, we would rather suffer in the dark,
Yeah.
and I just think that we're now at an age where it's acceptable to say, you know what, I don't have it all together. I can go see a psychologist. I can go see a counselor. It doesn't mean that, there's something wrong with me. It just means I'm trying to get ahead. And I think the way that we actually have to view mental health is to say, it's quite healthy to say, let me go and see a counselor or a psychologist when things are going good.
Mm.
Because it's just like, why should I go speak to those people when things are going bad? It's just to say, and all I'm trying to say is that let's normalize this.
Yeah.
Let's normalize going to talk to people and just saying, look, these are some of the issues that keep recurring. So if I'm having beef with my partner, and she keeps saying the same thing over and over again, and she can't sort of like knock any sense into me, then it would behoove me to go and speak to somebody to say, look, whenever we have disagreements, these themes are these are the themes that continue to come up.
Yeah.
And I think because I really believe that it's during that time, I lost, one of our relatives to suicide, from my wife's side of the family, and this was during that time. Here I am doing the bloody push-ups, posting these videos, and sad to say, this person ended up taking their life, So this is it's a real thing,
Yeah.
and I think that a platform like yours that just allows people to be real, and I think the key thing is, because we all get into this thing, so this platform of yours allows people to come on and keep it real and just be honest and open and say, you know what, I don't have it all together.
Yeah.
Because the narrative that is out there is of a male that has it all together. Now, one of the things that really pisses me off is that when you see the ads for males, you got the ads and everybody's all abbed up. But the reality is that a lot of the guys that are wearing these clothes don't have abs. Now, that's not to say that, those things are bad, but it's a narrative that is constantly pushed out there that this is the guy that's in control, And I think we actually have to allow ourselves not to be in control, and say, look, I don't have it all together. I struggle in these areas. And I think the more we can become open about our struggles, the better we can help one another.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, you know, certainly in the UK, you see quite a lot of charities, um, you know, following that kind of more, or trying to be more visual in terms of offering that level of support. And I've heard a few, or seen a few posts, certainly like on social media, or whether it be WhatsApp messages as well, about, you know, I think the some of the narrative is kind of like, you know, your friend says they're doing okay, but like they may not be doing okay, so to check with them. So
Mm.
I feel like there's definitely more of that that needs to continue, especially through social media, because we know what social media is like. You know, social media, you know, uh, I feel most of the times it's kind of 80 to 90% fake, because we all like to portray an image or feeling of, yeah, I'm doing great. But like once that camera is switched off, the smiles, you know, disappear. Um, and also coping mechanisms. Like with me, for being in the pandemic, my go-to stress reliever has been out on the golf course.
Mm.
And, you know, golf was, you know, relatively introduced to me by a buddy of mine, purely by continuously trying to get all of us into golf. And I don't,
Yeah.
1 second, and this is not to discredit him, that he was thinking of our mental health.
Mm.
I'm fortunate enough to live in the area that I live, that I've got access to golf courses. So, for example, so for me, while I'm working from home, the little ones at school, my wife might be working. You know, she works as a nurse. Sometimes she does night shifts, which means I have to double up in my duties. But for me, it was important to have that kind of outlet, because I can go in a green space, acres of fields. Sometimes it might just be
Mm.
maybe just me. It might be 3 or 4 guys all playing golf, but you you're in just like you know you're able to be in an environment where you feel like you can just step away from stuff. And I'm not
Yes.
gonna for 1 second try and make it feel like it's as simple as that for everyone. A lot of it
Mm-hmm.
is access, a lot of it is opportunity, a lot of it is, as somebody that's been into sport, I've always been told exercising and playing sport is good, not just for your body but for your mental um,
Yeah.
exercise, which although wasn't the narrative from the schools, because from a school perspective, it was be the best you can, and being the best you can is pushing yourself, but not necessarily focus on
Yeah.
mental health. So mental health is something I've learned more here. So yeah, so I feel like it's something that it's not just like a simple remedy in saying, oh, to cure mental health you need to do this. It is more
Mm-hmm.
dialogue. It is more getting to know each other, each of our neighbors more. And
Yes.
while social media sometimes can be, you know, a barricade or a hurdle for the reasons I've said before, is that that's what kind of what I'm trying to change with Men Don't Talk United. Basically, trying to fill as much as I can out there in terms of, you know, giving this sort of platform to people and making sure they feel that they can
Yep.
reach out to share their story.
Mm.
So, you know, so that's kind of, the journey that we're on,
Yeah.
basically. But I just wondered also if kind of maybe if there might not be, but if you don't have yourself, but if you had sort of any personal struggles, or maybe not even personal struggles, maybe things that you've seen specifically in terms of maybe challenges, whether it's been in your motivational coaching or anything like that, you feel like maybe might be that you see. I know you mentioned like PTSD, and you mentioned obviously the person from the family relative that suffered. But I
Mm.
just wondered if there was any aspect to what you do in terms of the coaching that helps with that. I mean, it's okay if you don't, but I just wondered if you had anything or experienced anything.
Uh, Look, I'll say this because I'm not a psychologist, a counselor. So in terms of, I don't do that kind of work. You know what
Sure.
I mean? So I think that when it comes to, and one of the key things I do say is to our clients that coaching is not counseling. And so where it has those things, they have to sort of like look for, they're encouraged to go to other services that can help them deal with those perhaps things that maybe are becoming barriers to their progress in their lives. So they might have to seek some professional help. But I think that something that I've and it's good to talk about this from a more personal experience. That my father was I still look up to my father. He was able to do, good things, and, he looked after his children, you know, and so he was a great provider. He would obviously encourage us to, study hard and all that. But I can't say that my dad was like ultra, you know, he wasn't that involved. He was only involved at the end, when it came to the results. That's when he'd get involved.
Hmm.
But during the prep work and all of that, nah, you wouldn't see him there, And so I think that, he was good at certain things. One of the things that he wasn't, um, that I didn't experience me personally, I never, when I was in my formative years, never experienced that, you know, when when you face struggles and as a young person and you're failing, you need somebody to come and sort of like say, come on, man, I
Yeah.
know you can do this, you got this. And so I never really experienced that, from my father, so to speak. And so he wasn't there for me in terms of emotionally. He was emotionally, I would say, emotionally absent. And there wasn't any such thing as, I grew up in that touch, you know like fathers hugging, holding their sons hands, none of that stuff. And so what I found is that, so that was foreign to me, that touch.
Yeah.
But you find that African dads are really good at being very touchy, not that's such a bad word, but being very more emotive,
Yeah.
with their daughters, more affectionate is a better word,
Yeah.
hugging, holding their daughters' hands. But with the male son, we're not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found is that there's a time once that I was lying on the sofa, just chilling, and my son came and put his head on my chest. Ah, man, every bone inside my body was like, get this thing off me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and what I mean was that because that was like, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah.
Get off me. You know what I mean? You know? And so, because I never got that for me to give out is a learned thing.
Mm.
So it's something that and so even now with my own son, there's the ritual is that, we may not necessarily, yeah, I'll say good night and all that, and, I love you, XYZ, but maybe there might not be the hugs, but normally, maybe the girls would come and give me a kiss on the cheek or kiss me on the head, but
Mm.
we just headbutt each other. You know what I'm saying? So he just comes in, and then it's just like heads touching. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's an
So
interesting way of
those,
greeting each other.
yeah, So that's how we do it. So that's what I find that, you know, growing up, this, and I remember when I was, I'll say this, I was at a church in New South Wales, and this father, Warwick Marsh was his name, or is his name. He was very affectionate with his kids, his boys, hold their hands, And I'm thinking, ooh, that's a bit weird, you
Yeah.
know.
I don't know about.
But what it, yeah, look, each to his own, but
Mm.
what it is that there's a reassurance, you know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
I think that, you know, what it does is it points to this thing of, um, I love you, I care for you, you know, you are special to me. And what it does, you see, is that it helps fill the gap. We talked about later on in life, if we've got this emotional gap that we have in our lives, we then begin to fill it with other things.
Mm.
We then begin to fill it. It might be with it might be the alcohol, it might be this, whatever it may be. We try to fill that hole with something to close that gap that we experienced in our lives.
Yeah.
And it's only up until we become aware that we've got this issue that maybe we don't let some of these vices that sometimes can cripple us as guys, don't tend to, can obviously tend to have a less of a hold over us.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. Because if anything out of this whole podcast, what I would like one of the key takeaways to be for people that are watching it, even for myself, is you mentioned about, obviously the relationship or the lack of relationship that you have with your dad, and then how fast forward how many years to your son and the way that you are now is more of a learned thing. And I think that's quite crucial because it resonates with me because similarly to you, um, I didn't really have that relationship with my dad. My dad, from being from the West Indies, he was living in the UK. I was in Zim, and I was living with my mom, and I was going to boarding school. But also for me, the affection wasn't there with my mom as well, which is the other side of this coin. You know, I can't recall a moment where my mom ever hugged me or told me it was okay or that she loved me. Now, when I fast forward to now, having a 4-year-old daughter, I'd like to believe I am very emotionally connected to this girl. When I have a son, when I have a son, I wonder how that relationship would be in contrast to how I am with my daughter. Because I like to believe I'm somebody who wears my heart on my sleeve, even though every background of mine would suggest different from the way I've raised up. I.e. going to a public school, playing rugby, you know, um, you know, making your own bed, basically living. I lived to the sound of a bell. Wake up, lunchtime, dinner time, shower time, time to go to school. That was literally my life. So, and you would know this. And I never, I so from that point, I never had that connection with any parent because I was at boarding school. Maybe with my grandmother, because my grandmother was naturally more maternal than my mother. So just to bring it back, so when I look at it now, I have metamorphosized, if that's the right word or right phrase. Maybe I've butchered that phrase. I don't know. Into this caring, listening, attentive, emotional, always available, ready to help, ready to listen. I mean, I don't know how many things I can put in those fingers, but I don't even think I've got enough fingers to say how more involved I am with my daughter, not just my daughter, but with my wife also. And when I look back at it, because you mentioned about it's a learned thing, I'm just thinking, how the heck did I learn this? Like, is it the culture? Whether it's a westernized culture and seeing all that, I don't know, but I've just strangely shifted from this, from this sort of like old traditional Zimbabwean and Guyanese as well, because my dad is the same way. Because like now, even though I've got a relationship with him, it's still kind of distracted. So I feel like I'm the one who's still trying to connect to him. But I'm not. So I suppose maybe it's because of the hurt of not having that. But I feel like in terms of my mental health, that's probably made me stronger in a weird way. But it's not to say that I'm still not vulnerable from a mental health perspective. But it's just been, it's unique. So that's why I say, like, when you mentioned, the fact that it's a learned thing. I think that's crucial, and I think the as I said, the takeaway that I want people to take away is that, and that you might feel like you're in a totally different place or position to where maybe you and me are, but find hope in the fact that actually, however you've experienced, you can. And I don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Make it feel as if like I know better than they do, or trying to dumb down the experience or where they are mentally right now. But I guess the point that I'm just trying to make is that, you can always learn a way to come out of that. And however difficult it is, it's all about reaching out, and it's all about, trying to be brave and trying to step out and, learn a new thing, or learn something that's going to take you from that past experience into a new experience. So yeah, so that's I think that's a major takeaway from me anyway. So that was really good.
Look, I think that, we're dealing with, when we look at our lives, and, human beings, regardless of origin, where you came from, you could be black, white, Indian, whatever, there's a human experience that we all go through, that the same hurts that a Zimbabwean boy is going to feel are the same hurts that a British boy is going to feel, are the same hurts an Australian boy is going to feel. It's just that these parents are located on different continents in the world, but the issues are the exact same. The only difference, you see, is going to be the background and the history, and the ancestry, and the things that, the way of doing things, whereas, there are cultures, these cultures of well have got periods, have got those things where fathers were distant, you know, because that was a taught, that was it. They had to be distant, like they were.
Yeah.
But now, as we know better, we try better. You know what I'm saying? As we know better, we try better. And I think that's just what the key thing is. But also to say that I just, I'm of the opinion that there's just some things I suck at,
Mm.
you know, and you know I'm okay with that, and whilst I will endeavor to be the best version of myself, I'll always try my best. There are things that maybe, you know, the old things of the past in terms of the legacy issues of being raised in Zimbabwe, the cultural things, still my children have to feel the wrath of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why do we have to deal with this? These African parents, blah, 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 and so, and so our kids would sort of like, make fun of that. But the reality is that, I sort of like said to them just a week ago, they were complaining about, oh, this culture thing, there's all these things. And I said, no, no, no. You need to understand is that when you need to understand the context as to why African parents say certain things. Now, if we look at the context when they would say certain things, there was a lot of wisdom behind it. The wisdom was always to protect and to nurture, never to divide. It was always to protect and to nurture. And I think that is the richness, in the heritage that we bring. But as guys, one of the key things is, you're gonna have to put yourself out there, and sort of like say to somebody, I don't have it all together. And that might be a hard thing to do, whether you do it with your spouse or with somebody else, but you have to sort of like, and I like the fact that you've got a group of guys that you can go golfing with, because when all the lights are away and it's just you guys on the course, you actually have got to interrupt your conversations with, let me keep it real. You know what, guys, I'm terrible with money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, I'm terrible with this or with that, or you know what, I can't fix an iron, I can't do this or that. I'm not an electrical guy. Some guys can repair irons and all that. I can't. And guess what? I don't care that I can't. Like somebody else can do it. Exactly. Whereas I'm not going to attribute that to something to say, oh my goodness, I can't fix an iron, there must be something wrong with me. I can't fix a car, big deal.
Yeah.
This is 2020. This
Yeah.
is 2020.
Yeah.
So I think that it's okay. We have to constantly try and put ourselves out there to say, you know what, I don't have it all together. And I think it starts with you and I being honest with ourselves first of all, because I can't be honest with you if I'm not honest with myself that, you know what, I don't have it all together. I'm going to seek some advice, I'm going to seek some help. And because that help is really going to raise your level of awareness. And when that awareness is raised, then we can begin to make the changes we want to make.
Yeah. 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 Great conversation. Great conversation, good topic. And I think there's some good things to take away from that. So yeah, so I just want to just thank you for your time again.
Not a problem.
Yeah, and you're obviously Stephen Magwenzi, so obviously your motivation work is mainly based out of Port Hedland, is it, Australia?
No, I'm in Perth now. We're in Perth.
Oh, you're in Perth, right? Okay.
Yeah, we moved to Perth last year.
Okay. And I guess people can find you online on Facebook, Instagram, the usual channels.
Yeah, Stephen Magwenzi or Stevie Gwenz, or or my website firmo.com.au.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll obviously put some of that information on our website, just because people like to know kind of obviously who Men Don't Talk United are talking to, where they're based, what kind of work they do, and
good.
Obviously you've got some expertise on certain matters in regards to motivational coaching.
You're far too kind. You're very kind.
So once again, thank you very much. It's been really good talking to you and kind of hearing your perspective.
Look, you know what? Thank you. I think that what you're doing here is a needed thing. I think that you're doing this. This is the right time to have these conversations, and let's just let it go from strength to strength. And I hope I'll have another opportunity to come on board and share some other things. But you know what? Keep going. Don't be discouraged. You know what I mean? Keep getting the word out there, and it's gonna help somebody. It's really gonna help somebody. And so this is a good thing that you're doing. And what we want to do is to ensure that when it comes to things like suicide, is that if we can help somebody, and just to say that, look, just get the help that you require. You know what? Go and speak to somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that this would have been a blessing 1,000 times over. Even if it's the one person that we can help, that's good enough. But I'm of the opinion that this is going to help a lot of people. And I just want to encourage you to keep going for it. I think that don't be ashamed of your story. I really think that the fact that you are an in-tune father, an in-tune husband, that's an absolutely great thing, because you know what, you're living your life, you're living your story, and that's a testament, I guess, to the goodness of your creator. So thank you so much, and we keep in touch.
Yes, Stephen Magwenzi. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Take care, man.